Two birds, one video. Welcome to the Drunk Linux User. I'm Len. I am the Drunk Linux User. Forgive the background noise, but I only have short windows in which I can do these videos, and I look at it this way. Somebody's getting some stairs repaired that probably weren't very safe to begin with, maybe, and there are people actually out there working, which is always a good thing. So, today, we're talking about the terminal lists. And yeah, I'm actually going to talk about the TV show from Amazon called The Terminal List. I've been watching this recently with my wife, and this is just a lot of fun. I mean, granted, the content in here can get really intense, but it is a good show. So if you like action, adventure, some intrigue, a little this, a little that, and a lot of heart, this is a good show to watch. My recommendation for the day, what? One of the things that I think is a little bit funny when you go to Amazon is it says, new, create a watch party to watch and chat with others. You know, we used to do this a long time ago, and it was called Invite Your Friends Over. How times have changed. The other thing I wanted to say about the terminal list is I think it is kind of funny, and I don't know if the writers did it on purpose just to see who was paying attention and who's not. But in this show, there is a lot of let's be secure with our messaging and everything. So he goes to the extent of using Threema with a reporter to make sure that the messages aren't getting intercepted and they can't be tracked and traced and everything. And I will do a show on Threema tomorrow because I did take a look at this and I think it's interesting enough to talk about. However, he uses Google to do his searches with. I started laughing when I saw that part of it. It was like, okay, well, if you're really going to be that secure, I think I'd be using something different. But all that being aside, the terminal list, if you're into that kind of show, I think it is definitely worth the watch. And I don't care if you watch it on Amazon or wherever, but good show. The next thing I do want to talk about today, especially for beginners and for intermediates who, when we get to that point where we know just enough to be dangerous, and those are 10 destructive Linux commands that you should never run. Now, there are certain instances where a couple of these may be worth running. You know, everything can pop up here and there where you find, well, I actually do need to use that tool. But let's take a look at the one that is probably one of the most destructive, and that's the rm-rf/*. Now, we're not going to go into any of these on a terminal. I don't want to have to mess with it. This article is talking about some of the things that you should never do, and one of them is this particular command in the terminal that will just completely wipe you out. Okay, you will have to just start all over again, install your system, bring in your data, set up your programs, all that other stuff. This wipes your drive. Okay, so this is probably one of the worst ones available. The reason why people kind of get suckered into using something like this is using forums. And this is something that I really strongly think needs to be addressed a little bit, maybe in a more prioritized way with newbie Linux users or even the intermediates. Just because you see it on the forum doesn't mean it's the right answer. If you see an answer that says, do this in the command line, you know, run a search on it first. Make sure that it's not some troll out there getting his rocks off, or hers, or theirs, they, whatever. You know, I'm not the pronoun guy, but anyway, check to see if this is a destructive code or not, because that's very, very important. You don't want to do some nasty work on your drive. Overwrite your partition. Okay, so what this thing will do is it will tell your partition. It could be your whole, unless you set up a separate home partition, but SDA is typically your main drive. If you've got multiple drives, you might see different letters after the SD, but typically SDA is usually your primary drive. So if you use the command echo with quotes hello and then the greater than to your SDA drive, what you're doing is you're telling the computer to write that drive all the way through with the word hello. So you've basically just gotten everything out and replaced with hello. Moving everything into the void, there is a null folder in your system. And if you use this particular number 3 on this list, where you're using something to send it to the /dev/null, basically what you're doing is anything that you have told it to do. For example, in this example, it says to move, okay, your home user directory to dev null. You've just wiped out your home directory. So all your data is lost. If you haven't backed up, you're screwed. Formatting your drive, the mkfs command, again, using your partition drive SDA. Now that could be followed by a 1 or a 2 or something like that. It all depends on your setup. Fork bomb, this has recently gotten into a couple of different websites I've gone to, but it looks like emojis, you know, the classical style where you're using your keyboard as opposed to a graphic. And it's all these different characters. And basically what it does is it kind of like fills up everything until your system freezes. And again, I apologize for the background noises, but people need to be safe and people gotta work. Overwrite important configuration files. That greater than symbol again is being used, and what it does is it just completely messes up your system. And again, you're probably, unless you have a certain restore capability with your Linux system, you're going to have to come back and reinstall again. Replace partition with garbage data. Well, that one's kind of self-evident in the description, and the command's right here for that. It's the DD command followed by a certain set of, I don't want to say these things out loud because I don't want anybody thinking I'm saying do this. I'm saying don't do this, okay? Exposing your system to everyone. Permissions are set so that you have access to it, only your system has access to it, and you can tell the system to let everybody have access to it. And if you do that, then anybody can get your stuff, anybody can mess around with your system, and that's not a good thing. So even though 7 can be a lucky number, not in this case. So don't use this command here of I don't know how this is pronounced. I call it chmod, but it's CHMOD and then the code after that has the 7s in it. Don't use that. Download and run malicious content. Okay, this one can be a little bit tricky because if you've gone to a website where you've maybe gone a lot of times, or you've gone into a forum that you've normally trusted, and you see somebody, hey, I've got this great new piece of software and I want you to install it and I want you to do it this particular way. SH is a way of being able to tell your system to install a particular type of software. And sometimes you don't want to go there. So make sure that you're getting your software from the direct source and not necessarily from a link off of a forum. Look it up. Question the person on the forum. Where'd you get this? Things along that line. Disguise commands. Okay. Hex-coded commands. Most people aren't even going to go this route. It looks pretty nasty to begin with. People might try to copy and paste this and put it in, but it's basically the hex-coded version of RM/RF, the very first one I talked about before. What's this little cartoon say? Tech support says the problem is located somewhere between the keyboard and my chair. You know what? A lot of times that's true. So anyway, that first command that I showed you at the very beginning, the thing that wipes out your drive, that's the one right there. So some of you, especially the new people, are, well, I don't even want to touch the terminal now. No, don't feel that way. This is something that is very powerful. And a lot of systems, when you start up the terminal for the first time and you put in your first sudo command, it comes up with, be careful, with great power comes great responsibility, that Spider-Man quote thing. And, it's the system can't stop you from doing something if you have the permissions to do it, or you give the system the permission to achieve that goal. Things are a lot smarter in computers right now, and they do try to warn you, but you have to do your due diligence in making sure that you don't do something wrong. And double check, do the searches, and make sure that whatever you're putting in is correct. You will get to the point where there are just going to be some commands that just roll off your fingertips onto the terminal and everything's going to be cool. So don't be afraid of the terminal. Respect it. It's kind of like a self-defense tool, right? You don't want anybody getting hurt, including yourself. You want to understand that tool and keep going. That's a bad example, but I'm going to leave it up there anyway. Okay, so we've talked about the TV show terminal list. We've talked about the terminal list of things not to do on your system. If you're one of those creative Linux people, watch this video over here, the one that talks about time to shine, and let's get your information out there so that everybody can take a look at your great work, whether it be artistic, audio, whatever, especially the written word. I love reading. Let's leave this on our words of wisdom, shall we? Don't drive drunk, don't drink and drive, don't go to eBay, Amazon, or use MS Edge shopping all buzzed up thinking you're going to buy the latest, greatest, and coolest stuff, because you're probably not. And in the meantime, bottoms up. Later, dudes.